When the lights dimmed at Allegiant Stadium on September 13th, all eyes were on two men, Canelo Alvarez and Terrence "Bud" Crawford. Two pound-for-pound kings colliding under the Vegas sky, the kind of event that makes history. But behind the roar of the crowd, beyond the punches that cracked through the air, something else was happening, something that had nothing to do with championship belts or boxing records. This was about community. This was about hope. This was about the UFC Foundation turning a mega fight into a mega opportunity. Because while fans cheered inside the stadium and thousands more tuned in across the globe, UFC and Zuffa Boxing launched their first ever 50-50 charity raffle during a major boxing event. The result? More than $128,000 raised in one night. And that money isn't just going into corporate pockets, it's going directly into changing lives. But before we break down where this money is going and why this moment is more important than you think, let's rewind the tape. The stage: Canelo versus Crawford. Las Vegas has always been the fight capital of the world, but Allegiant Stadium that night felt like something bigger than boxing. Canelo, Mexico's pride, a legend already etched in stone. Crawford, the slick technician, the undefeated warrior chasing pound-for-pound supremacy. It wasn't just a fight. It was billed as a cultural showdown, a generational clash. Fans showed up draped in Mexican flags, others chanting for "Bud," and the energy was electric. Now, you'd expect the headlines the next morning to be about Crawford's masterclass performance, or about Canelo's resilience. But one story slipped under the radar, a story about what happened in the concourse, on the raffle tickets, and in the hands of fans who weren't just betting on fighters, but betting on change, the raffle that shook Vegas. For the first time ever, UFC Foundation and Zuffa Boxing partnered with Netflix, Sella, and Riyadh Season, launched a 50-50 raffle that was open to anyone inside Allegiant Stadium and across the state of Nevada. Here's how it worked. Fans bought raffle tickets, some as little as $20, some as high as $100 or more. Half of the total pool would go straight into the UFC Foundation's community initiatives, and the other half would go to one lucky fan. By the end of the night, $128,230 grossed. That's not just pocket change. That's the second highest total for a UFC raffle in U.S. history, and the third highest in all of North America. The winner? Francisco Luna of Vallejo, California. A regular fan, just like you or me. He was in Vegas with family and friends, ready to watch his idol, Canelo Alvarez, put on a show. He dropped $100 on raffle tickets. And guess what? He walked away with $64,115. Luna put it perfectly. My family and I had an incredible weekend in Las Vegas, and even though my favorite fighter, Canelo Alvarez, didn't win, this was a great consolation prize. I'm going to put my winnings towards a down payment on a new home, and we couldn't be more grateful. Think about that. A fan comes to see his hero fight, walks away with enough money to change his family's life. That's the magic of 50-50 raffles. But this story isn't just about winners in the stands. It's about the young people in Las Vegas who are about to benefit in a much bigger way. The real winners. The youth of Las Vegas. Here's where things get powerful. The other half of that raffle, $64,115, is going straight into the UFC Foundation. And if you're thinking, okay, but where does that money really go? Buckle up, because this is where the story gets inspiring. Net proceeds are funding the Youth Mentoring Program, a Las Vegas-based initiative built for high-risk youth between the ages of 12 and 17. This isn't just about teaching kids how to throw punches or wrestle. It's about changing the trajectory of lives. The program provides free after-school tutoring, mentorship, and combat sports training, all wrapped in a safe environment with real coaches, real guidance, and discipline. Partnering with the Fighting for the Future Foundation, the Boys and Girls Club of Southern Nevada, and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Foundation, the UFC is giving kids an outlet, a structure, and most importantly, a sense of belonging. And if you're asking, why combat sports? The answer is simple: discipline, respect, and confidence. These are the tools that combat sports give young people. When you walk into a gym, you're equal. Gloves on, head down, work ethic first. That's the kind of mentorship these kids are about to receive. Shaq steps in, the future of the program, but it doesn't stop there. In 2026, UFC will expand this initiative by opening its first ever boxing and MMA center inside the Shaquille O'Neal Foundation's youth complex in North Las Vegas. That's right. Shaq is teaming up with the UFC to take this project to another level. The facility will be more than 30,000 square feet. It will serve over 180 kids daily after school. And it's not just a gym. It's a full community hub, complete with the country's first ever Communities in Schools Alumni Center at the helm. Former pro boxer and current Zuffa boxing analyst, Skipper Kelp. He'll be running the show, training youth 5 days a week in boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. Plus, the center will host live events, tournaments, and community showcases. This isn't just about combat sports. This is about building a pipeline from the streets to the mats, from at-risk to empowered, UFC's bigger mission. This moment with the Raffle is just one chapter in a bigger book. Since 2017, UFC has hosted over 40 separate 50-50 raffles across North America. Together, they've raised more than $2.3 million. And that money, it's been poured back into local charities, schools, gyms, and community programs in the very cities where UFC has held events. They call it #UFC in the community. It's more than a hashtag. It's a movement. Fighters may get the spotlight, but these programs remind us that UFC is also about building up the next generation, inside and outside the cage. Fight culture meets social impact. Now let's be real. The UFC is known for big knockouts, trash talk, and drama. But moments like this prove something else. That fight culture has the power to do more than entertain. It can transform communities. Think about it. Combat sports have always been about survival, discipline, and respect. Kids growing up in tough environments connect with that. The UFC is leveraging its platform, the same one that packs arenas and sells pay-per-views, to redirect resources where they matter most. And the timing couldn't be better, because while we celebrate big fights like Canelo versus Crawford, or look ahead to blockbusters like Della Maddalena versus Makhachev, we can't forget what makes this sport powerful. It's not just about who's holding the belt. It's about what the sport gives back. The bigger picture. So let's pull back for a second. One weekend, one stadium, one raffle, $128,230 raised. A fan goes home with a life-changing check. A foundation fuels programs that will help kids reshape their futures. And in 2026, Shaq and UFC open a mega center in North Las Vegas that becomes a beacon of hope. That's not just a side story to a boxing match. That's a legacy moment. And here's the kicker. This is just the beginning. UFC has already announced its next 50-50 raffle will take place during UFC 320, Ankalaev versus Chandler in October. Another chance to raise money, another chance to change lives. Another reminder that fight nights aren't just about what happens inside the cage, but what happens after the lights go down. Canelo versus Crawford may have delivered fireworks in the ring, but the real knockout came outside it. UFC Foundation and its partners turned a night of punches and pride into a night of purpose. $128,000 raised. Families impacted. Kids are empowered. Communities strengthened. And here's what makes it even more powerful. You don't need gloves or a championship belt to be part of it. Every fan who bought a ticket contributed to something bigger. Every raffle ticket was a jab at hopelessness, a hook at poverty, and a knockout blow to the cycle of neglect. So the next time you watch a UFC fight, remember, it's not just about titles. It's about transformation. And sometimes, the biggest victories aren't measured in wins and losses, but in lives changed.